Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah wa ala alihi. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alim al hakim. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. If for any reason you can't hear me, just say and I'll sit up higher. But for now, I'm more comfortable on the floor, inshallah. Okay, it's a very short time to talk about such a big book. Although it might only be small in size, it is actually probably one of the biggest projects that I worked on. And it took about 12, maybe 15 years of work, whereas many of the other books, which might be bigger in size, took a lot less time. And the interesting thing about it, it's a process. This book was a process. And in there, there's a short introduction of who I am. And the reason why I put that in there was because you need to understand who's explaining this. Because the explanation has to be from somebody who's gone through an experience. And experiences vary from place to place. And I'm not going to pretend that my personal experiences are not involved in this book. It's based on my upbringing. It's based on my experience as a child. It's based on my experiences as a young man. It's based on my experience as a young father. It's based on my experiences as a traveler. It's then based on my experience becoming a father late in life, a second time round, except that part doesn't come in there because it was translated and published before that happened. If I was to write it again, it'd be a different book. Why? Because the experiences I have with my young son now have changed my perception of what happens in child rearing or child development. So I'm not going to pretend that this is some scholarly text which is written by somebody several hundred years ago and is not a living book which you should challenge. Because there's things in here which I don't expect you to agree with, and I don't want you to agree with. Because the way the book is structured, if you have the book, you'll see that, for example, if you look at page 23, you'll see that the Arabic poem is put in there. And then after that, you'll see there's a translation. And then after that, there is a commentary. Now that commentary, the section which says commentary, you will see is mainly an explanation from classical resources. This is what Imam Fulan said. This is what Imam al-Nawawi says. This is what Imam al-Munawi says. This is what Imam al-Ramli says. This is what Imam al-Ghazali says. This is what the linguistic meaning of a word is. So it's all kind of technical. But then after that, there's a section called reflection. And this reflection is very important because it's where my experience in all the different aspects that I've just told you come into comment on what Imam al-Ramli has said. And again, this is just reflection, and hopefully you'll read it and see some things that you agree with and some things you don't. And then the final section of each chapter, it then poses a discussion with one particular question. And that question had been put, as I said, it took over 12 years to work on this book. I would put a question to a group of people and we would discuss it. And over the years, I collected quotes from different people around the world, from Australia, from Denmark, Sweden, Norway, America, South Africa, England. And these notes then came into this discussion, including, for example, on this page I'm looking at here, Habib Omar bin Hafiz, where I just actually wrote him the question to him and says, what do you think? So you'll see that that's the structure of the book. It's called, the Arabic title is called Riyadat al-Sibyan. Thank you. He was just about to give to it. Thank you. Oh, okay, you want to give me that too? Thank you. Right. Seeing as you want me to write, I will write. It's called Riyadat al-Sibyan. It's absolutely cool. Riyada. And that Arabic word is actually quite important because the title of the book will give you an understanding of what the book's about, but also how you translate the title will also give you an indication of what the theme of the book is. Because that word is... Do we have any Arabic speakers or people that could actually translate that word? Because it depends. I mean, I speak to people and I say, Riyadha, and says, yeah, it means mathematics. And it's correct. And I speak to other people and they say, no, it doesn't mean mathematics. It means physical education. Aren't they completely opposites? So if I say I'm a teacher of Riyadha, what would you think I'm a teacher of? Maths or PE? So that's an interesting one. And actually I'm not a teacher of maths or a teacher of physical education. Well, actually I'm qualified as a PE teacher, but that's another story. My profession is I trained as a primary school teacher. And I remember, thank you. I remember the first time I went to work overseas. Well, when I went to work in Saudi Arabia, they'd heard... Well, no, sorry, let me go. I started to teach, and most of my friends were English. So they went to teach in this school in Saudi Arabia. And why do English people go to Saudi Arabia? Especially in those days, that was the only reason people went to Saudi Arabia. You can't drink. Huh? There's no bars. Why would you go to Saudi Arabia? So everybody in that school thought that all the teachers were there for money. So, it's okay. So, they came and they asked me, some people came, oh, you're a teacher. MashaAllah. Ustaz al-Inglisi. So, what do you teach? What do you teach, brother? And they're expecting me to say, I'm a science teacher. I'm a maths teacher. I'm an English teacher. That's what they were expecting me. And I said, I'm a primary school teacher. And he looked at me. Eh? He looked. And he turned to his friend. Anyone translate that? You can imagine it's not a pop. Which literally translates, actually, murabbi means somebody that looks after children. Childcare worker would probably be what you might think. But actually the word murabbi, I was thinking, the way he said it, huwa bas murabbi. And the look he gave me was, you look like a man, you have a beard, but you are surely a woman. That's what he looked at me with his eyes. But surely you are a woman. He didn't say it. He said, huwa bas murabbi. Okay. Now the word murabbi comes from this word. Tarbiyah. And at the time, I was insulted. Why? Because I was a 25-year-old man. And I don't like being looked at. Oh, you are a woman pretending to be a man. So I was insulted, offended. But later, I realized, actually, he was complimenting me. He just didn't know it. Because what he was saying is your job is to look after children. You look like a man, but you're a woman, he meant to say. But actually, he said, I'm a murabbi. My job is to do tarbiyah. I'm going to come back to that. But it's translated as educating children. Right, I'm going to jump into the book if it's okay. And if you have the book, please feel free to have a look at it. Just to prove that it was written in Arabic first, I'll read it in Arabic. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi al-wali al-hamdi. موفق للخلق لكل رشد على الذي به علينا أنعم حمدا يعم الأرض والسماء ثم الصلاة بعد ما قلنا به على النبي وآله وصحبه وبعد فالتأديب للصبيان من أول نشو أتم شأنه. Right. All praises to the one who deserves all praise, the one who makes humankind amenable to guidance, for what he has bestowed upon us, a praise that encompasses the earth and the sky. So it begins in the traditional way. And after that, Amma Ba'd. Do you know who the first person to say Amma Ba'd is? Sayyidina Abdul Muttalib, grandfather of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So it's a tradition that is in the family of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And after what we have said, come salutations upon the Prophet and his family and companions. And following on, know that the education of children from the initial stages is a great affair. Let me read it in Arabic again. فَتَأْدِيبٌ الصِّبْيَانِ مِنْ أَوَّلِ نَشْوٍ أَتَمُّ شَأْنِهِ. Which word in there means education? Those who've got the book can try and work it out, and those who can't, you just have to guess. I'll say it in Arabic again. فَتَأْدِيبُ الصِّبْيَانِ مِنْ أَوِّ نَشْوٍ أَتَمَّ شَأْنِهِ. You have the book and you look as if you know. Help me. Sorry, I heard somebody say it. Ta'deeb. So I've got 3 words on here. And I'm going to add 1 word which isn't on there yet. Ta'aleem. Right. Now I'll just say those again. Riyadha, Tarbiyah, Ta'deeb, Ta'aleem. Anyone know what any of them mean? Or am I just throwing this up in the air? And if somebody knows, help me. And if you say education, then I will be impressed. You don't want to impress me? Speak sign languages. Education. Excellent. All of them in education. Can you explain what the difference is? Right. Now listen carefully, because the way that you look at these 4 words will explain how you see children. And all 4 of them have slightly different meanings. All 4 of them have slightly different meanings. Riyadha, what did I say it meant? Maths or PE. How can maths and PE have the same name? And I'm saying it means education. Explain. What, me? Anybody want to guess? Seeing as we don't have much time, you can just pretend and keep your head down until I say, because I'm not going to pick on anybody too much today. Right, I'll tell you what the difference, why. Riyadha is, maybe if you want to make notes, is something that's important. Riyadha is something that you get by perfection. You reach perfection by exercising it. 2 times 2 is? 4 times 4 is? 8 times 8 is? Good. 2 times 2 is? 4 times 4 is? Sorry? Press ups. 4 press ups, please, now. You don't know how to do press ups? Let me show you. Like this. Go. Leg straight, knee straight. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's done this before. Well done. Excellent. Right. You've done it before. You've never done press-ups before? Well done. He's an expert already. Right. You look like you've done Riyadha. You look like you've done it before. Riyadha is something that you get better at by practicing it. Is that what education is? Blank faces. Right, who works in the school? In this school? Nobody. Oh, I can't pick on one person, it's not fair. Right, would you say Riyadha is what you do in the school? You keep doing things until they get it right? Do you have any children that have difficulties? Do you have any children that have behavioral difficulties? And if you keep telling them to do things over and over and over again, what do? They refuse to do it. My job, I only work with kids who have problems. By definition, if they come to Abdul Aziz, it's because they've got problems. And schools only call me when there's problems. My job is to deal with, and the biggest, that's another thing that would change now, is that if you keep asking a child to do the same thing over and over again, for many of it, it works. But for some, it doesn't. So riyadh isn't necessarily what I would say you should be doing here. Although for PE, you should get this guy in, he's good. Okay, riyadh. I'm going to come back to tarbiyah in a minute. Ta'deeb. Any grammarians here? Anybody that knows any Arabic? Yes, no, yes. Right, root letters of the word ta'deeb. Adab. Right, what does adab mean? Etiquette. What does etiquette mean? It's a big word for me. I'm only a primary school teacher, remember that. Adab. It's a Malay word, I'm sure. Yeah? So what does it mean? Respect. Respect and etiquette are different. And we have what we call adab, the adab of the toilet. So that's respect for the toilet? No. Sorry? Order. I like that word. It's not quite what I would have thought, but... Right, let me give you the definition of adab. Adab in Arabic means wad'u shay fi mahallihi. Putting something in its correct place. Putting something in its correct place. Among the other things that the brother forgot to mention to you is that I have several serious mental disorders, including OCD. And I'm not joking. He thinks I'm joking, Tariq does. Okay. It can be very serious. It's not always very serious, but it can be debilitating. Sometimes it takes me an hour to leave the house. Why? Because every time I leave the house, I need to come back to check the door. And sometimes it's until I've gone round the round about 10, 15 times, then I just decide, okay, let them burgle my house. And then I go to work. But it's not always like that. But sometimes I become obsessed with where does the knife go? And if I see something in the wrong place, it kind of freaks me out. Does that mean I have great adab or not? Or does it just mean I'm crazy? It's a fine line, isn't it? Because adab actually means to know where a particular thing belongs. To know where a particular thing belongs. And if you came to my house, alhamdulillah, I'm better now, but before, it would be if you came to the house, I would have to make sure that the cups match. Isn't that kind of normal? If I offered you cups that didn't, a cup and a saucer that didn't match together, would that be bad adab? It would. Because adab is wad'u shay fi mahalli, putting a thing in its correct place. Right, what's the adab of the toilet then? It's not respect. What is it adab of the toilet is? Give me some of the adab of the toilet. Why is everyone asleep today? It's a good job I'm not doing a proper workshop, because you'd be all thrown out of the room and say, 400 press-ups. Right. Cover your head. Another adab. Enter with your left. Wear slippers. Recite dua as you enter. Recite dua as you exit. Exit with your right foot. These are all the adab of the toilet. What does it mean? Wad'u shay fi mahallihi, putting the thing in the right place. Where does the left foot go? It goes in first. How does it come out? Right foot first. Why is that important? Because you have 2 feet. And if you know how to use your feet in terms of adab, you will always be walking straight. You will always be walking correctly. So that's why the adab of the toilet is so important. What's the adab of leaving this room? Left or right? Okay. What about the adab of getting in the car? Right. Where are you going? Okay. So now you're starting to think about where you're going. Left, right, left. Okay. All right. So, ta'deeb, it says, فَتَأْدِيبُ لِلصِّبْيَانِ مِنْ أَوَّلِ نَشْوٍ أَتَمُّ شَأْنِهِ. It says that teaching a child adab from the first stage will lead to the perfection or the completion of this affair. So what you do in those early days will make a massive difference. Anybody got a left-handed child? So how does he eat or she eat? Is it an issue with the way they eat? Excellent, through riyada. But what about writing? You don't bother, because it's not important to you. Why? Because you know Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab was left-handed, and he wrote with his left hand like this. So for your son or daughter to be like Umar ibn Khattab, khalas, no problem. So, but you trained him or him to use the right hand so you've taught him adab. So you've done ta'deeb through riyada. You've done ta'deeb through riyada. My son's left-handed as well. So that's why I asked, because I know, because sometimes it's so frustrating, because he can use his right hand when he uses his hand, but he can't use it very well when it comes to the fork. So sometimes if he's eating with a knife and fork, he'll switch to the left hand. And anyway, there's a famous sheikh who is also left-handed. There's also a famous sheikh from Australia who is also left-handed. And unfortunately, somebody made a video of him while he was eating with a knife and fork. And he sometimes slips into using the left hand when it comes. And he's a sheikh. They took a video of him and posted it on the internet to try and disgrace him. Of course, there's more to life than this. But alhamdulillah. So this is about, so education is about ta'deeb. And finally, ta'aleem, root letters. Ilm, alama, to know. So this is about knowledge. So education could be all four of these. And education refers to all four of these words. Right, I missed one of them out, which is tarbiyah, which means huwa bas murabbi. He just takes care of kids. He just takes care of kids. Is that all it is? Tarbiyah is taking care of kids? Yes? No? The word murabbi doesn't just mean a carer. It actually means a gardener. Murabbi, if he said, oh, bas murabbi, and he didn't give me that dirty look, a woman in man's clothes with a beard? If he didn't give me that dirty look and he just says, huwa murabbi, he might have meant he's a gardener. And I wouldn't have taken offense, because that's an honorable profession, isn't it? Being a gardener. Who's a gardener? Right, I'll prove how good I am at gardening. Anyone know what? I was looking this up. The Malay word for rhododendra is rhododendra. Is that right? You don't even know what rhododendra are. I was thinking, how can I explain what rhododendra are in Malay? I thought, easy. That's what Google translates for. Rhododendra, what does it come up? Rhododendra. Right. Can one of you people that know about gardening explain to this poor guy what rhododendra are? Why am I looking at you? Can any of the ladies tell me what rhododendra? All right, durian. You know what durian is? Khalas. Okay, let's start with durian. Okay, I knew I had to be culturally sensitive today. Right, rhododendra are beautiful flowers. We grow them in England. They also grow here. And they require if I can check my notes. You need to plant them in the spring. They need shade. They need acidic soil. Now, most soil in the UK is alkali. So you can't plant rhododendra in England unless you have special soil. And if you go to a gardening shop,
They're looking at me. I thought this was about education. Just bear with me 1 minute. Okay. Huwa bas murabbi. He's a gardener, and I'm proving to you. Okay, now if you go to a gardening shop in England and you look for soil, you see soil and you see soil for rhododendron. All right, forget it. Okay, just forget it. Durian. You know durian? Okay, khalas. It's a good job I researched this as well. Right, durian, you need deep soil. If the tree doesn't have 1.5 meters of soil underneath it, the tree won't grow. Understand? Khalas. See, now he understands. You know how much rain you need for durian? Annual rainfall required for durian to grow properly is 1,500 millimeters per year. For you thinking, yeah, we get that in a month. It's just Malaysia. Okay. 1,500 millimeters. That's like, it's enormous. All right. Do you know what humidity you need for durian? 75 to 80% humidity. You need a temperature of 24 to 32. Less than 24, khalas, no good. More than 32, khalas, it'll die. And you know the biggest problem with durian, growing durian, is that when they're young, they need to be protected from the wind. The biggest problem for durian, two problems when they're young, is they need to be kept moist and they need to be protected from the wind. And you get very strong wind in most of this area. So to grow durian is not that easy. You just think you just throw a seed in the dirt, you get a smelly plant. Yeah? It doesn't happen like that, does it? It doesn't happen like that. You're looking at me, what's he talking about? Right. Why am I talking about this stuff? Sorry? No, it's not just knowledge. I'm actually trying to explain to you what tarbiyah is. Tarbiyah, if you want to let something, tarbiyah means to let it grow. If you want it to grow, you need to make sure you plant it in the right soil. If you plant it in the wrong soil, it will not grow. If you don't look after the durian plant in its early stages, protect it from wind, and you make sure it has plenty of water. Plus, it needs between 30 and 40 days of dry, a period where it's completely dry for about 30 to 40 days each year to grow. So you need to protect it also from that heavy rainfall as well. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made durian grow in many places. Just like that. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who has the ultimate tarbiyah of everything. That's why He's called, the word we use is Rabb. And Rabb is related to the word tarbiyah. Rabb means the one that makes the things grow. Now you're not the Rabb, but you can still do tarbiyah of durian or rhododendron. Right? Anybody know anything about tomatoes? No? Absolutely nothing about tomatoes? Yes, they're red. You are so cool. Right? Anybody else know apart from this young man? All right, forget tomatoes. Anyone know about children? Right, I've just given you all the conditions that are required for durian to grow. I've given you all the conditions for rhododendron. I could have given you all the conditions for tomatoes. Why? Huwa bas murabbi. Because he's a gardener. He looks after children. Right, I've got a question for you. Right, 3 of you, you have to come up with an answer. In fact, all of you have to come up with an answer. The word that I would now use for the word tarbiyah, in the book, I think it says upbringing. I would actually change it now if I were to retranslate it to the word nurture. And the reason why is because nurture has become the theme for education
in among a lot of modern educationalists, in particular in my field. Now, my field, I just told you, is the kids with difficulties, people with problems. And those kids that can't do the things that you ask them to do, I need to work with them. And the job that I do now is a really horrible job. I used to have a lovely job the last time I was here. And the job that I do now is just dealing with people with problems. And I said to my wife about 6 weeks ago, in this job, I've dealt with everything except murder, rape in the school, every kind of problem, I've dealt with it except murder. Then I came home and I said, you know, I used to say I've dealt with everything except murder. Change that. And since then, I've dealt with 2 murders. School children, plus 6 suicides. So for me, the kind of work that I do has changed. And that's why when I talked about that 10 years ago, whenever I wrote it, I talked in one term. Now I'd use the word nurture. Because almost all of the kids that I work with, or all of the young adults that I work with, they've missed out on something to do with their nurture. And my job for a lot of what I do is to work out what is it that they missed. Why has this person killed another child? Why is this child so violent? Why is this child only violent under these circumstances? Why does this child not want to go to school? Why does this child not want to leave his mother's side? Why? And now, the theme that is in my head and what I'm looking at in terms of my professional development is nurture. And we have, in the kind of modern thinking around pedagogy, they have what they call the 6 principles of nurture, which I'm not going to go into because you've had enough of rhododendron, stuff like that. If you were to talk about the principles of nurture, what would they be? And I'm going to give you a few minutes to see if you can actually write down. I know traditionally I would insist that people have pens and paper, but we're living in Malaysia, so phones will do. Okay? Which means you can also Google, of course, which is cheating. But as I said, I deal with kids who are involved in murder and rape. So cheating is not so high on my agenda. So if you cheat, I won't mind. But in 3 minutes' time, I'm going to ask every single one of you to come up with 3 principles or 3 things to do with nurture. What do you need to nurture a child? And don't say you need 1.5 meters of soil. Okay? Because that's not necessarily the answer. But it would be something like that. What would the bullet points be? What would the bullet points be? And I could give you my 6, but I'm not going to give you my 6. I'm going to ask you for your 6. Okay. Right. Can I just point to people and you can show something else? Please. Teacher, can you not have nurture without teaching? Do you really need a teacher? I'm just asking. I'm not saying you can't. You do need a teacher. Anyone want to disagree with it, please? You do need a teacher. Okay. Well, I wouldn't have said teacher. I would have said mother. Probably a few years ago I would have said parents. But I actually changed my mind and I would have said mother, bigger. And the reason, again, I'm going to have a personal experience in this. My wife Sarah, she became very ill. My wife Sarah became very ill when our son Idris was 18 months old. He was still being breastfed, and then one day she went to hospital and didn't come back. And it was a big shock to him. She spent the next 4 months in hospital, and after 4 months, he didn't really want to talk to her anymore. Not that he could talk very much anyway, but he didn't want to talk to her. He rejected her. And he decided that I'm his mother. So he called me Mama. And he called her Sarah.
And then he decided he's going to call me Mama and Daddy. And he's going to call her Sarah. And then about a year later, maybe about 8 months after this, I realized he wasn't so stupid. He did know the difference between Mama and Daddy. Because sometimes he would call me Daddy, but he actually meant it. And then other times he'd call me Mama, and he meant something different. And I was his mother and his dad. Because for the mother, he would always call me Mama when he really needed me. And I didn't notice that until a few months into his mother coming home, and he'd still say, Sarah! Actually, he didn't used to. So was his words, how he used to call her. And he'd call me Mummy, Daddy. And then I realized, actually, sometimes he'd call me Mama or Mummy when he needed particular things. When he needed to be fed, he'd call me Mummy. When he needed the toilet, he'd call me Mummy. When he needed cuddle, he'll call me Mummy. Now he doesn't need that. He now can call me Daddy and Mummy. And sometimes he calls her Mummy when he's really being nice to her. So I would have changed that to say, I don't think he needs a teacher. Because I'm a teacher. But I don't think I'm a good teacher. I think I'm a better mummy. He doesn't. He thinks I'm a better mummy as well. Right. So I'm not disagreeing, but just my personal opinion. Right. Great. That's a great one. Shelter. Right. That's really important because shelter means a lot more than just a building. Now, when I talked about the durian is really important you protect it from the wind. There's a very specific danger to do with tomatoes, which we didn't talk about, and durian. What are the dangers for children? In terms of the physical dangers. What's the equivalent of the wind coming into your son or daughter's life that could blow them over and cause them to die? Sorry? Falling down and getting hurt. So safety is quite important. So do you have locks on your drawers? Do you? Just you have kids. Okay. Do you have like protective things all over the place? Not really. Does anybody? So that's not really a big certain areas. So you actually differentiate between what's dangerous and what's not. Which areas do the kids know that? Okay, general question, sharp corner. How do you deal with it? With your in terms of your kids. I have a friend, there are no sharp corners in his house. He covered every single sharp corner with a protector. In fact, he protected everything. Even the protectors have protection. His wife says, he's trying to kill us. He's trying to kill us through protection. Please speak to him, Shaykh. It's serious stuff. But it's actually an important question. What do you protect physically against? My wife, just yesterday, she says, Idris went to the park on his own. I nearly freaked out. What? No, not on his own, she said. He was with her cousin. He was with his cousin. I'm thinking his cousin is 8. And she's Danish. She doesn't live in Glasgow. And she could hear the panic in my voice. She says, are you not happy with that? I says, no. She says, okay, I'll make sure he never goes out again alone. So alhamdulillah, sorted. Didn't even need to shout. But protection, what do you need to, do you have kids? What do you need to protect physically in terms of the shelter? Is there anything that comes to mind that you need to make sure your kids don't get hurt? Sorry? Knives. Right. So there are things that you're very clear, this is dangerous and that's not so dangerous. And those kind of things are related to ta'deeb as well. Right. Excellent. Tarbiyah. What are we? Knowledge. Do kids need knowledge to grow? Can I just have a show of hands? Because people look at me like, I thought you were a sheikh. You ever get that look? People, no, you probably don't. But they look at you. You're not who I thought you were. Just when they say, Bas Murabbi, these ladies, is he really a sheikh? It says sheikh on the. I'm not really a sheikh. Okay, get over it. All right, let me put it to you. What was the question again? What did you say? Knowledge. Right. Do children need knowledge as part of their nurture? If you think the answer is yes, put your hand up. If you think that knowledge is part of their nurture, put your hand up. I'll come back to that. Put it down. Those who don't think it's part of their nurture, put their hand up. 4, 5 of us, 6 of us. Can they try the sister mentioned all about wishy-washy stuff? Some love. What else did you say? There was lots of wishy-washy stuff. There was love. There was some other wishy-washy stuff. Security. Did you mention the word fun?
Yeah.
You didn't mention it, but if you would, because you just did it because it's an Islamic habit. Because it's Islamic, you shouldn't use it. Maybe if you use happiness, that would have been more Islamic. So happiness, not fun. Good. So we'll scrub out fun. Why are you picking on me? Right, the reason why, and I'll pretend to be a sheikh now, the reason why that isn't just wishy-washy stuff is because there's a very important principle where some have attributed it to the Prophet ﷺ and others have attributed it to Sayyidina Ali. But either way, it's well established in the Islamic understanding where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says, play with them until they're 7 and then teach them. And although that hadith may not be authentic or may not be authenticated, although I personally understand it to be authentic, it may not be well documented in terms of the sanad. It's a well-known principle, but what's more important is that those that are clear is when the Prophet ﷺ was asked about salah, he says, teach them at 7 and then, or encourage them up to 7, and then at 10 is when you enforce it. So there's a period before the enforcement, so to speak, of the law. There's a period where people get used to. And if you look at how the seerah developed, the community developed, its tarbiyah was through stages. And if you look at children, this principle of allowing the child to grow, to grow and then to teach, and the teaching comes after the growth. So there are principles within that can trace them back to the Sunnah, which is to allow the children to play. And among the things that you know from this is that the way the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ reacted or worked with his own children, grandchildren, and importantly his wife. What? You putting a wife in the same category as child? Yes. For 2 reasons. One is when Sarah introduces herself, she says, I'm the mother of 2 kids, Idris and Idris's dad. And she doesn't mean it as an insult. I don't think. But actually, now I've said it, it's quite insulting. But anyway, she means it lovingly. And she does often refer to me as a big kid. And I remember the other day I was in Al-Warisin and Naeem looked at me because I was doing this with the kids. And then I just looked around and everyone was looking at me. Why is that man in a thobe and a kufiya who was supposed to be giving a talk here, jumping up and down? Because I was playing with the kids. Because that's what I like to do. And people are going to say, yeah, but he's not a real man. Bas Murabbi. Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab, We know who Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab was. He walks down a street, what does shaitan do? Walk down another street. That's Umar ibn Khattab. Umar ibn Khattab, there's 3 occasions where he almost killed somebody. One of the occasions somebody came and insulted the Prophet, attacked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he took out his sword and he says, "Bisayfi hada ya Rasulullah." Sounds much better in Arabic. If you translate into Scottish, it sounds okay. Should I do him? Should I do him? In English, with this sword. Oh, Prophet of God. Doesn't sound so good. It's much better in Scottish. Should I do him? So the Prophet, Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab, asked to kill. He himself went to kill the Prophet. He's no weakling. When it comes to war, Umar ibn Khattab was a great fighter. But what was he like in the house? He was described, when he was in the house, he was like a child. When he was in the house, he was like a child. So where did I get to? So when I said how he was with his wife, they were like that. They were loving. But in particular, this is important because Sayyidatina Aisha radiallahu anha was the age, she was the daughter of his best friend, who was 2 years difference between them. So it could have been his daughter's age. So Sayyidatina Aisha radiallahu anha, the way that she develops is the way the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have liked to have seen tarbiyah. When she entered the household of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he allowed her to play with dolls, encouraged her to have, did you use that horrible, that naughty word called fun? You're going to look, no, give me the evidence for that. Give me the evidence of where the Prophet ﷺ encouraged Sayyidatina Aisha to have that word. All right, I'll give you the evidence. There was an Eid day. The Habasha, the Ethiopians came to the Prophet ﷺ. They came into the mosque and they danced in the mosque. You're looking at me, what kind of dance did they do? You really want me to tell you how they danced? They went like this. Muhammadun Abdun Salih, Muhammadun Abdun Salih. Okay? Anyway, for the rest of it, just enough to know that it was a dance. So they danced in front of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What did he say to Sayyidatina Aisha? Climbed on his shoulders and he wanted to see more. So he lifted her so that she could have a better view of the entertainment. So the tarbiyah of the Prophet ﷺ did include education, it did include teaching, and there is knowledge involved. But initially, the stage of the early stages was around an environment where the child could grow. And the things that you said are exactly the things that I would have said. Is the child needs to be safe, needs to be secure, needs to be happy. Because when a child is happy, you will see that they grow. And most of the kids that I work with now, who have ended up in difficult states, it's because they weren't happy. They weren't happy. And sometimes what we need to do is to go back and give them some opportunity to be happy. I'll give you one example from my personal experience. I worked a few years ago with a group of refugees. These were Congolese refugees who had seen some of the worst atrocities of the Congolese war. All of them were the most vulnerable of all refugees by UN standards. And among them were certain young girls who were used as sex slaves. Now I went to go and meet some of these refugees as the first port of assessment, so to speak. Fortunately, I had studied Swahili, so I could actually speak first language to most of them. So I went to one house, and we met all of these, and I had the list from the UN, 7 people I was coming to visit. 2 of them I don't care about because they're big people, and 6, 2 big people, dad and mum, and 4 little people. They were my 4 little people. So I came in and I started playing with 3 of the little people and talking with them and just getting to know them. And I was thinking, there's one missing. So I asked the mum and dad, is there another child? They said, no other children. And I'm thinking, could the UN have made a mistake? And then I remembered there was a lady who opened the door. In addition to the 2 parents, there were 3 kids and a lady who opened the door. So I says, who's the lady that opened the door? She says, oh, she's just so-and-so. That's the person's name that's on my UN list. So I says, could I talk with her? Said, well, if you want to. So I came and I talked to her. Has you ever been to school? No. Do you ever want to go to school? Yeah. How old are you? Don't know. You've never been to school? Would you like to? Yeah. Do you know what you do in school? No. You want me to tell you what we do in school? Okay. We read. You know books? Took some books out. Which books do you like the pictures of? And she picked the most colourful book and says, great, I'm going to read the story to you. And I read it to her in English. I says, did you like that? She says, yeah. I said, do you want to go to school? She says, yeah. And then I went back to the manifest and I realized that this young girl had been used in the most horrific way in the war. And now she's ended up in the UK and she's actually only 11 years old. She just looked 20. So I went and I started, so how am I going to work with this girl that's never been in school, doesn't speak a word of English? What did I do? I started off playing games. Games that 3-year-olds play. And she just loved it. And then we moved on to games that 4-year-olds would play. And then 5-year-olds, and then 6-year-olds, and then 7-year-olds, and 8-year-olds, and 9. And when we got to her real age and she started to thrive, you would not have imagined who this girl was before we started this process. And the happiest time that I saw was when she turned around and she says, I want to be a doctor. And I looked at her work and I thought, you know, you have learned to read a foreign language in 3 months. You could be a doctor. And it's probably, if I could choose one child that I think I've influenced in my life, I would say it was her. What we needed to do is to go back to allow the child to grow. That's what I needed to do. Now, I'm not saying that the sister's completely right, and I'm not saying that you're completely wrong, but you need to think about this question of tarbiyah. What is it that will make this plant grow? Durian do not grow in the UK. Alhamdulillah. Never grow durian. Even if I moved to Malaysia, I will not grow durian and I will not eat durian unless Shaykh Afifuddin or Habib Hassan force me to. And I'm prepared for that day. I'm mentally prepared that one day they might force me to eat durian. But apart from that, nobody will ever make me eat durian. Okay, that's over. Right. I need to make a decision about plants. Which country is this going to work in? And you made that decision, didn't you?
Yes.
Deliberately. Do you like durian?
Yes.
Alhamdulillah. See, it took him 4 years to like durian, but because he loves his wife, he will eat durian. And he will move to Malaysia for the sake of his children, to protect them from the wind and the rain and everything else that might harm that beautiful young boy that you've got. That's what tarbiyah is. That's a taster of the book. They're just 4 words of the book. And if we read the whole book, it'll take us ages. So I'm going to stop there because I think I was told to.